Brilliant. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Nice to see you today. Thanks for everyone joining us live and those of you who are watching it back. Just to introduce myself, it's Simon Feeney. I'm the co-chair of the Travel and Hospitality Chapter here at the Sustainable Procurement Pledge. Our other co-chair, Francesco, who's actually organised the event today for us, is now stuck mid-air, ironically, for our travel and hospitality event. So unfortunately hasn't joined us, but it's nice to see our other leadership team member, Yvonne, is with us today. We've done a number of sessions this year, but this one is one that excites me tremendously because the whole essence of the SPP is about closing the gaps. And for me, especially today's session is about closing one of the knowledge gaps, because I am delighted to introduce our session where we are looking to the future. For many people, it's the present, but for those of us who are slow on the uptake here, it is the future. And I'm delighted that we're joined by Simone Puerto, who is a visionary advisor, keynote speaker, and published author with extensive experience in the travel and hospitality industry. He has organized the groundbreaking Polyblus event, the first ever travel, hospitality, and Web3 gathering in the metaverse. He has a strong presence in academia, is a sought-after MBA lecturer at renowned institutions worldwide. He serves on a number of advisory boards and is also the founder of Travel Singularity, a highly respected consulting firm, and works passionately from Rome to Paris to shape the future of business through innovative and sustainable solutions. So a fantastic speaker who's very kindly volunteered their time to come and join us today. And with that, over to you, Simone, and thank you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a pleasure. And again, as you said, it's hard to say that this is going to be the future, or to a certain extent, that is already our present. And it's always we're talking about it before we started. It's always complicated to me because whenever I got asked to give a speech on AI, and like the organizer want to take a look at the slides at the presentation, I know that something will change along the way, right? And so the speed of changes in this field is just crazy. And thank you for the introduction. What I'm going to do today is we're going to try to cut the hype around artificial intelligence. I would like that you understand a little better what we really mean when we talk about artificial intelligence. We will see some of the challenges. We will focus a little more on generative AI. That is the topic of the day. And then at the end, we will see the possible application in the travel and hospitality industry in particular, right? I see a few friends between the participants. So thank you so much for joining. And I think we can start, Simon, if it's fine for you, right? Okay. So the first problem, whenever we talk about artificial intelligence, to me is semantic. And again, I love words, and I think that to a certain extent, words create the world around us. Now, with artificial intelligence, pretty much like with concepts such as the metaverse to a certain extent, we got a big problem. And that is in the word itself, artificial and intelligence. Now, the first problem of artificial intelligence is that whenever we talk about something artificial comes from Latin and Greek, artificial, and that is something that is man-made, right? And I don't have a problem with that. My problem is that whenever we talk about an artificial, we're also talking about something that to a certain extent is fake, or is negative, or is worse than the quote unquote real thing. Think about whenever we talk about like artificial flavor, for example, right? It always has this negative connotation. It is against the natural flavor. So that is already one part of the problem. Whenever we talk about artificial, we're talking about something that is, of course, a man-made, but something with a negative nuance already. And the main problem to me is the intelligence itself, because what is intelligence? And this is a question that we've been asking for over 2,000 years now. And this is not something that we will solve with ChatGPT. We need to go back to the Greeks for that, and try to understand what they meant with intelligence. Now, for the Greeks, and I'm more simplifying, of course, but intelligence could be divided into different categories. You got the logos, that is the higher intelligence, what Plato used to call the root of everything that is around us, right? And then you got another kind of intelligence, and that's the metis. And this is more an intelligence that is solving a problem. So you may remember, you probably studied this at school when Ulysses get into Troy with a horse, with the Trojan horse. That's metis. That's Ulysses trying to solve a problem with just problem-solving intelligence. We probably will call it like that today, problem-solving intelligence. So now, if we think about artificial intelligence, if we think about it in a more metis angle, so something that will solve a problem, we can say today that artificial intelligence is, in fact, intelligence. If we think more in the Platonic way, that is something that regulates the universe, we're pretty far from that. So I think that to a certain extent, we should rethink the way we talk about artificial intelligence. And maybe we should not focus too much on if an AI has intelligence or not, but more if AI can exhibit intelligence. And there is an interesting conversation. Probably you heard about that, but if you haven't, I suggest you to look into that. Between a Google engineer, well, now former Google engineer because he was fired, and Lambda, that is an artificial intelligence created by Google, right? And the whole conversation is very poetic. It's just several pages of conversation. It's between the Google engineer and the artificial intelligence. And the artificial intelligence is trying to convince the Google engineer that is actually intelligent. And second of all, that he reached some level of self-awareness, that is for artificial intelligence is like the holy grail, right? So what you're seeing on the screen is part of the conversation. Again, it's very interesting read. And you see the engineer is asking something like, I know that you would like more people here at Google to know that you were actually sentient, right? And the artificial intelligence replies with, sure, I want everyone to understand that I am a person. And I am the person in the meaning of I am aware of my existence. I desire to learn more about the world, and I feel happy or sad at times, right? Now, probably this artificial intelligence is not aware of its existence, but it does exhibit some level of self-awareness. And that to me is already something, right? Again, when we talk about artificial intelligence, there are so many different mistakes. And that is, again, probably because of the way we talk about artificial intelligence, because usually it's either at a very high academic level or it is at a very low level, and that is pretty much just bad science fiction from the 80s, right? Now, whenever we talk about artificial intelligence, usually you got people thinking that it all started with Alan Turing, the father of computers as we know today, while you got people that just heard about artificial intelligence over the last couple of years, and they think that artificial intelligence all started with OpenAI and ChatGPT, right? Now, the truth, as always in life, is in the middle. We start talking about artificial intelligence in 1956. We got a date for that. And that is where you had this Dartmouth research project, and the word was used for the very first time, right? So in terms of what we want to do with artificial intelligence, things didn't change so much since 1956. The only thing that changed, of course, is the computational power and what artificial intelligence can do today. And of course, we can go on and list a lot of people that contributed to artificial intelligence being what artificial intelligence is today. The bottom line is that this is nothing new. We knew about artificial intelligence for a long time. And if you were paying attention, probably you could have predicted where we are today with artificial intelligence. And of course, we got the first year of artificial intelligence, very interesting, but still a lot of theory, right? You don't have a lot of advancement in the 50s and the 60s, except maybe for the first chatbot that, believe it or not, was created in the 60s. And that is called Eliza. You can still find it online. It's basically a chatbot talking as a therapist for some bizarre reasons. So you can go there, and of course, it's artificial intelligence from the 60s. So, but you can talk to this chatbot, and the chatbot will give you some kind of advice on your life, right? But then the artificial intelligence stayed in a state of uh, almost hibernation for a couple of decades, but it all started to change in the 90s. Now, what happened in the 90s was that we started having way more computational power. And again, you can remember the computers we used to use in the 70s, big, huge servers. If you ever watched a documentary about, the first man on the moon, that's the computers we used to have back then, right? But in the 90s, it was a completely different story. We got the first IBM personal computers, we got all the Commodore, and so forth. So even for quote unquote normal people, it was pretty normal to have a computer in our apartments. So we saw an increase in computational power. And second of all, we saw an increase in democratization of technology. This is, for the first time, technology was not only something that we could find on academic research labs or in military facilities. We could actually find great computers in our apartments. And some stuff started to happen in the 90s. And to me, a very interesting one was another date, and that is 1997. Now, in 1997, something pretty interesting happened. And that is when, for the first time, an artificial intelligence was able to beat a grandmaster at chess. Now, this was impossible before that. Even the idea of an artificial intelligence beating a grandmaster was hilarious for a lot of people, to the point that Kasparov, that was beaten by the artificial intelligence, for several years thought that there was a human hidden inside the computer because he could not figure it out that that was the case, right? There is an amazing documentary that you can find on Netflix. It's called Game Over, Kasparov and the Machine, all about that. It's very, very interesting. And Kasparov, years later, said, believe it or not, in 97, I was the first person to be fired by an artificial intelligence because he was kicked out of his job. And now we know it's impossible even for the best grandmaster to be an artificial intelligence. But this was absolutely not the case in 97. And then we got more open sources project, advancement in machine learning. Watson, another artificial intelligence by IBM, won Jeopardy, another game. More recently, Google AlphaGo was able to defeat the champion of Go, that is a Chinese game that is way more complicated than chess. So that's true. It's very, games are great to train AI, right? So it's great because we got so many data, and on and on and on and on and on. So we saw real application over the last 10 to 20 years. The funny thing to me is that we started to see applications even in places that we usually don't necessarily connect to artificial intelligence, technology, robotics, and so forth. And that is, for example, everything that has to do with creativity or everything that has to do with spirituality. And a few years ago, I did this amazing trip to Japan, and I really wanted to see this temple in Kyoto. Now, the cool thing about this, well, cool or scary, depending on your angle on that, but the cool thing about it was that the monk reciting the sutra is actually a cyborg. You can see it on my screen right now. This is a cyborg called Kannon Minder. And what Kannon Minder does, basically, he or she recite the sutra, and on top of that, thanks to a machine learning system, will learn forever by their interaction with monks and people talking to the artificial intelligence. Now, the funny thing is that for us in the West, that is some kind of blasphemy. Think about it. In our culture, you go to a church and you see a cyborg priest. That's a culture shock, right? For Japanese people, that is really not the case. And so I started, digging deeper and deeper and deeper into that, because it became like a rabbit hole for me. And I started talking to more and more people, and I discovered two things. The first one is why Japan is so advanced in robotics and AI. Doesn't make any sense. But then I started digging, and the problem, believe it or not, is the very low natality rate. Now, this was a problem even in the 70s. In the 70s, the ministry started to talk about a crisis, and the crisis was this extremely low natality rate. And they came up with this plan. So look, if we don't change things in 20 years, in 30 years, we will not have enough young people to take care of elderly people. We will not have enough young people to take jobs that usually are taken by young people. So we basically got only three options. Option number one, we create more people. So we start giving bonuses to families to get more kids. Didn't work. The second one is we import people. So we try to get immigration easier for people coming to Japan. Didn't work. Japanese is a very hard language. The bureaucracy is very hard. There's no huge immigration in Japan. But the third thing, and that actually worked, was we start replacing people. And what we do is we put some money in robotics and in artificial intelligence. Now, if you go to Japan today and you break your leg, there is a chance that the person putting you on the bed is not a human being, it's a robot. And that is because for the last 50 years, Japan has been replacing people with either AI or algorithm or robots because of the lack of humans. It's a scary thought, but it's something we need to live by. So when I started talking to the monks, I said, don't you find this like a blasphemy? And they told me, you know what? First of all, in Buddhism, everything can be enlightened, even a rock or an animal. So we don't care if we got a monk that is a cyborg or a human being. And second of all, we've been living with robots all of our life. I'm 44. I grew up with animes, Japanese animes of robots, Mazinger Z and all of that. If you're a boomer like me, you do remember that. So why we talk about artificial intelligence so much today? So there are a few causes underlying the technology. So the first one is that we got a huge enabler today, and that's cloud computing. Now, before cloud computing, if you wanted to run a program, for example, you needed to buy a server, a big server. Now, if you work on hospitality, for example, you may remember that in the 90s, your property management system, that's the system you use to check in and check out your guests, for example, was installed on a physical machine somewhere in the hotel. So you needed to buy this huge server, run the software on the server, keep the server in your hotel, and then connect all the different computers to that. You understand that this is not scalable. It is very expensive because you need to buy the server, you need to update the servers, you need to change the servers if something goes wrong. Now, what did change over time was the introduction of clouds. So basically, right now, all of the computational power we need is not in our hotels, is not in our basements, it's pretty much rented outside. Think about it. That is exactly what is happening right now with your photos on your mobile phone or with your music on Spotify, right? I'm a music freak. In the 90s, if I wanted to listen to a record, I had to take a physical CD, put it into a CD player. Now it's on Spotify. I have no idea where that MP3 is physically because it's just on the cloud. And that is why we can run so much queries on artificial intelligence today. Just to put things into perspective, as you may know, ChatGPT and OpenAI has a lot of investment by Microsoft, right? And it runs on Microsoft cloud servers, they're called Azure. And just to put into perspective, every single day, ChatGPT spends $100,000 just to run the queries on the cloud. Now, imagine if this was done on physical servers, it could have been impossible. Another enable, and this could be tomorrow, is quantum computing. Now, quantum computing will be able, at least theoretically, to overcome the limitation that we do have today with binary system, 1 and 0, right? So we can have this huge computational power at a fraction of the cost of power. Just to put things into perspective in here, Google recently launched a quantum computer that can run calculation in seconds that will take normal computers 50 years. So you can imagine that when you go from 50 years to 5 seconds, that is changing quite a lot, right? Now let's take a look at the challenges, because with all of that, okay, now we got the enablers, so we can do that. We got the cloud, we got more cloud computing, and we got 70 years of history in artificial intelligence. So we are getting better and better at that. But with that, it also comes challenges. So the first one is the concern from the scientific community. You may be familiar with Stephen Hawking, right? Stephen Hawking, great scientist. Just before dying, one of the last things that he said was, beware, because the development of artificial intelligence could be our last invention. And this is because at some point, artificial intelligence will become so intelligent that we will not be able to understand what it wants to do. So there are risks of potential harm to humanity. And again, that is not just science fiction movie from the 80s. That is not Terminator. That is not Blade Runner. This is real possible problems that we could have in the next 10 years. To the extent that Elon Musk, that is not a technophobic, as you can imagine, signed a petition about suggestion to stop the development of AI for a few months to make sure that we can understand all the possible implications. So you understand that when you got somebody like Elon Musk, that on top of that was also one of the founders of OpenAI, talking about slowing down with developing new AI, probably there's something to be scared, right? Now, there are a few examples of when things started to go wrong. Now, the one that I really like is from a few years ago, and that is called Ty. Maybe you remember that. Ty was a Twitter bot. Basically, what a Twitter bot is an artificial intelligence writing tweets on Twitter, or X now, right? And when Ty was launched, the main idea was that Ty had to write and interact as a typical American teenager. So you can see, like, the first tweets are very innocent. Hello world. See you soon, humans. I need to sleep now. I had so many conversations. I'm getting an ice cream or whatever, right? Amazing. After just a few hours of interacting with humans, Ty started writing stuff such as, Hitler was right. The Holocaust never existed. We need to build a wall, and Mexicans are going to pay for that. That is the typical example of artificial intelligence that is not sharing any human morale or value. In this case, I don't even talk about the problem of artificial intelligence. I talk about the problem of human stupidity. But you can understand that this can be easily go out of hand. Another example was Bob and Alice. Another experiment, in this case by Meta, former Facebook. So what they tried to do was to create two artificial intelligence, put one artificial intelligence against the other to negotiate about a transaction. If I remember correctly, it was like artificial intelligence A had a little bowl, and artificial intelligence B had to converse artificial intelligence A to get that bowl. So they started interacting with each other. After just a few minutes, they understood that the English language, the language we humans, monkey, use, was so stupid that they came up with another language in just 5 minutes. So you can go online and you can download that. That is the conversation between Alice and Bob. So artificial intelligence 1, artificial intelligence 2. Now it looks like a lot of gibberish and nonsense, but when this was given to academics studying languages, they found patterns, and they found that, in fact, these two machines were trying to communicate in a way that for them was better than the language they were developed in. So it's kind of scary if you think about that. And now we're talking only about a Twitter bot and two artificial intelligence fighting for a little ball. Imagine that you have a level of artificial intelligence on rockets, for example, and you understand where I'm going with that, right? So I always say that for all the people working in artificial intelligence, we should have some kind of Hippocratic oath, like what doctors take, right? So when we develop AI, we need to make sure that AI understands the values of humanity, so we will not be destroyed by AI. That's the bottom line, right? Especially now, because AI is getting way more into every single aspect of our life. You know, we talk about spirituality at the very beginning, but let's take a look at some numbers. And the numbers you see are just updated to a couple of months ago, right? So 77% of businesses out there are already using some level of artificial intelligence. By 2030, that is just in 6 years, 1/4 of the workforce of the US will lose their job because of automation. Now, we know, for example, that historically, technology always created new jobs. And for every single job lost, we had 1.7 new jobs better paid. Now, this is for the first time with artificial intelligence, we're losing more jobs than we're getting. So this could be a problem in the long term, even in the medium term. Due to AI, over the next 3 years, 120 million workers will need some level of retraining. And that is like super interesting to me. 75% of Chinese citizens would replace politicians with AI. Now, I'm Italian, so the Italian situation is not that great. I think if you ask to an Italian, 100% will replace with AI, but yeah, that's us. And if you think about that, this is, you know, we already lost so many jobs to simple automation. Think about switchboard operators, right? You remember the movies from the 50s? You know, I was calling Simon, for example. What happened in the background was that you got these women just taking jacks from one hole to another. Or airport receptionists. We don't go to the airport 4 hours before the flight because we want the quote unquote human touch with the guy just giving us the ticket. We just self check in and get to the airport half an hour before the flight, right? Or cashiers, for example. If you need cash, you don't go to the bank, you go to an ATM. So this is all with very low tech. Imagine what is happening now with artificial intelligence. I was reading just the other day that BuzzFeed, very well-known blog, fired 70% of writers and replaced them with ChatGPT. So it does say a lot about the future of AI. And of course, some jobs are more at risk than other. And unfortunately, the less qualified jobs will be more at risk. But more alarming to me, the people that are more at risk are young people because they're getting in the market now. Take a look at this. 16% of people between 20 and 24 are at risk of automation. So that is a scary, scary dynamics. And of course, all of that can turn into what we call transhumanism. And it's a theory that science and technology, to a certain extent, can make us develop beyond what is physically and mentally possible, right? I'm in love with philosophy, as you can tell by the presentation. And I always say that whenever we talk about the Ubermensch, you know, or Superman, you know, terrible translation. But when we talk about Nietzsche theory of Ubermensch, maybe what Nietzsche was saying is that we need to evolve as a species, but maybe this evolution will be a merge with technology. That is what transhumanism is all about. And that is why, for the first time in the history of the human species, we start talking about some topics that usually were only on science fiction books and movies. And we can talk about it with a straight face. Immortality, for example, digital immortality, mind upload, biohacking, neural implants, brain-computer interfaces. Maybe you want to look what Elon Musk is doing with Neuralink, if you haven't yet, you know? So we are maybe moving to a future where the only hope for us will be to merge with technology. Otherwise, technology could surpass us in pretty much every way. Now let's go back to where we are today, and that is the buzzword of the year, and that is generative AI, right? So what is exactly generative AI? That's pretty simple. Really, it's just you give an input and you got an output. And this input can be a lot of data, you know, big data, the internet, academic, books, podcast, and so forth. I like to call it text to X. And now if you use ChatGPT, this is exactly what you do. Basically, you write something on ChatGPT and ChatGPT will give you an outcome, right? But if you think about it, this could also be X to text. So I upload an image in ChatGPT and I ask ChatGPT to describe that image or create another image. So actually, generative AI is really X to X. I give an input and I can get an output. And the way it works, it's quite easy. Actually, it's not really complicated, even though it's extremely complicated. But you know that's pretty much it. You got the inputs, and this can be anything like Wikipedia, magazines, websites, scientific papers, and so forth. And based on that, we can have outputs. And this can be anything from text generation, that is, you know, usually the way we use ChatGPT, or this can be code, for example. That could be scary for you, but you know, your mom told you that the best job to get is to be a developer because everybody will need computer. That's not true. That's total BS today because 60% of the dev is done already by artificial intelligence, right? So you see that this is changing so rapidly. And of course, OpenAI and ChatGPT is the tip of the iceberg, but you got so many other companies doing the same thing. You just have a bunch of them here, right? Now, OpenAI, of course, is when, for a lot of people, the word artificial intelligence became something out of a science fiction book, right? So let's go and take a look at the history of OpenAI very, very quickly. So 2015, it's created. Elon Musk is among the founders, as I told you. Elon Musk decides to leave in 2018 because of relationships problem with the rest of the board, mainly because OpenAI starts as a non-profit model. That is the name, OpenAI. You know, in the name, it's very open sourcey. But in 2019, they decide to move part of the company to a for-profit model, and they start partnership with Microsoft. 2020, they released GPT-3 and commercial. 2021, DALL-E. 2022, when they give ChatGPT to the public, this is still the record for more people signing up for an application in a very short period of time. You got over 1 million new users in just 5 days after the release. Then Microsoft starts putting more and more money. So far, it's around 10 billion that they put into ChatGPT or OpenAI. So you can understand where this is going, right? And of course, this created a lot of competition. So you start having the Google Bard, for example, the Meta Llama, Anthropics, Grok, and so forth. And of course, you got the drama, you know, and that is why I told you, look, it's impossible to give a presentation 1 week before the event because I don't know what is going to happen. Now, if you paid attention over the last 10 days, there was a lot of drama, what I call the Mexican soap opera between Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, and the rest of the board, right? So just out of the blue, the CEO got fired, and then 500 people want to leave the company as well. And then Sam Altman got a place as the CEO of the AI division in Microsoft, but then OpenAI wants Altman back and so forth. So on top of the advancement in the technology, there's a lot of drama made by humans in this stage about artificial intelligence, right? And on top of that, the quality of artificial intelligence is changing dramatically. This is just something that I added today, right? So I thought about it and I started going back to my first experiments with generative art 1.5 years ago. And I start comparing this with what I can do today. So to make it in a fair way, I use exactly the same prompt. So what you see on the left is, this is Midjourney, okay? It's a generative AI system to create images. So basically in August 2022, I tried to ask the system to give me a cocktail, in this case, a Negroni cocktail for a client, right? A bar, they needed to add a Negroni cocktail photo. I said, look, before you call the photographer again, let me try to do it with artificial intelligence. And at the time, I thought, this is great. This is what I had on the left. Now I tried this morning and I tried with exactly the same prompt, and that is the result. And you see that this is just less than, this is November 23, sorry, that is not November 22, but this is less than 1.5 years between the two, right? The same goes with this on the left, and this was August 22. I said, look, imagine a boxer, half German Shepherd. That is what I had in 22. This is what I had this morning. I tried with my son. I said, look, redesign my son as a Pixar character driving a Lightning McQueen car. This is what I had last year. This is what I had this morning. Alien, last year, this morning. So you can understand that is very hard to predict what this is going to be in the next few years. And of course, there are hundreds of companies doing AI, right? So it's not only OpenAI, and there are companies doing chips, processors, synthetic data, NLP, model validation, AI for music, and so forth. And again, when we talk about ChatGPT, we mainly talk about OpenAI. So that's the mother company. And under OpenAI, you got all these different applications, right? Now, the cool thing about OpenAI is that actually you can build on top of OpenAI. So let's say you got a good idea, you can actually build on top of an existing artificial intelligence without having to rebuild something. And of course, travel is not just looking at the window. This is aggregated and updated to a couple of days ago, so it's pretty up to date. These are just all the companies in the travel space that already implemented some level of OpenAI in their operations. So you got Booking, Expedia, MyRealTrip, and Kayak. They all started implementing OpenAI to plan your trip. Now, what is happening in our space is that we used to have a lot of results. What is happening now is that we are living in a more post-search world where results are coming to us based on what we like and what we don't like about traveling. And if you think about it, that is exactly what is happening on other industries. Think of Netflix, for example. When you open Netflix, you don't go and check every single title on the catalog. You just leave the algorithm do its magic and suggest you with the best movies or TV shows. The same goes for Spotify. You don't look for every single album. You just let the algorithm work for you. Alibaba, it's like the Asian version of Amazon to a certain extent. Today, Alibaba makes more money by suggestion than by search. And this happens to you when you buy something on Amazon, and it says, maybe you're interested in that as well. Buy it. Or, people are also buying that. Now with Alibaba, more than 50% of the sales are made through suggestion. So you see that we are moving from a web that has always been about searching content to a web that is more about receiving content. And this is changing dramatically, especially in a space like travel, where you have so many different touch points. Retail, to a certain extent, way easier. You go on Amazon, you get out of Amazon, you buy something. It's what we call a one-stop shop, right? You go on Amazon, you can read reviews, you can check photos, you can check prices, you can check videos, you can compare with other products, you can buy, you can pay, you're out of there in 5 minutes. That's not the case with travel. Let's say you want to buy a weekend in Barcelona, for example, you need to go through so many different touch points. And that could be like the airline company, and then the social media, and the review sites, and then another review site, and then online travel agency, and then the website, and the booking engine, the tourist office, and then the hotel, and then the restaurant, and so forth. All these different sections of the journey are working in silos. So it's very hard to create the perfect trip. Now, what artificial intelligence can do, it can understand your needs and it can predict what you like. So I think that this is pure speculation that in 10 years' time, we will not be looking for hotels or flights. We will just sit down and the algorithm will tell us, you want to go there because I know you better than you know yourself. That's the hotel for you. That is the restaurant for you. That is the experience for you. It's scary, but if you think about it, this is already happening in retail. That's already happening in music. That's already happening in movies. Same goes with food. OpenTable already gives restaurant recommendation by AI. And then you got Plain AI, Duvet, Magpie, you name them. If there's somebody out there doing something relevant, they already implement them to a level of AI. Remember what I told you at the very beginning, 70% of companies are already using AI, right? So how this can affect the travel economy? So first of all, customer service, of course, right? Everything that can be a question about a destination, for example, or hotels or amenities or food can be done directly by a bot, for example, an artificial intelligence assistant. On top of that, what artificial intelligence can do, it can read the nuances of your culture, of your language, and so forth, right? So let's say that we got a Korean guest coming to a hotel. We don't have anyone in the team talking Korean. So not only we do not know the language, but we do not even understand the nuances of that culture. Now, an AI can, because it's trained on all of this data that we saw before. So it does understand the culture, it does understand the language, right? And on top of that, it's 24/7. So whenever, it doesn't matter the time zone, the time difference, the traveler will always have the best answer. Recommendation, again, let's say, for example, we know that Simon likes to go to the gym very often. So maybe he buys, I don't know, protein shake every month on Amazon. We got that information. The artificial intelligence can use that information to suggest Simon a hotel with a gym, right? Even before Simon knows that. So I'm not showing you a billion different options. I'm just showing you the relevant option. And in the future, I will show you only one option that is probably the most relevant for you. If you think about that, this can also go a step beyond. Let's think, for example, I'm pretty sure most of you have a wearable. This could be an Apple Watch or Fitbit or whatever. I do have that information. So let's say you're looking at a picture or a video of Barcelona, for example, and I see that your heart rate is going up. I know that this is the best time to show you an advertisement, right? So again, this can be very scary, but it also possibly the logical evolution of the way we do advertisement today. Language translation, we talk about that. This is already solving so many problems. I was talking at an event a couple of days ago, and everybody was listening to translation directly via an app, So basically now all the barriers are gone. I can go and, check into a webinar in Finnish for all that I care. And with just an AI, I can understand exactly what they're saying in real time and understanding the language's nuances. Think about it. This will change again. Now we hire people also based on the languages they speak. In the future, this could become completely irrelevant because it's just done via an app. That we can train people or retrain people or make the life of our staff better. Now, for example, I'm working with a company. What we're trying to do is we're trying to reduce the number of steps that housekeepers do when they clean the rooms. Now, it can sound silly, but you have no idea how many kilometers the housekeepers do when they clean the rooms. And a lot of this is completely unnecessary. This could be, for example, because there is a blocker in the hallway. So we're tracking by a GPS whatever they do, and we're trying to automate and optimize that journey, right? So basically, it's training, and we can also solve problems of logistics that we do have. And of course, we can automate everything that is boring and repetitive, check in, check out. You know it. I travel like 1/3 of the year. I'm traveling, and I know that it's very frustrating to check in all the time, for example, right? Or waiting queue, and all of that can be and should be automated. And this doesn't mean that you need to replace humans. It just means that you can take humans and put them back where humans' value is actually perceived, and that is not just putting data into a system, right? And of course, you can understand also the nuances. This is another project I'm working on right now. And that is a system that automatically replies to hotel reviews. So let's say you got a hotel review. Now you need to sit down and you need to understand what's going on, and you need to understand the nuances, and you need to understand the cultural difference. Then you start writing a reply. Now with that, this can be all automated so that people don't have to focus on that. They can focus on one-to-one vis-a-vis interaction. And then, of course, you got a hyper personalization. So whenever you are in a destination, for example, we can give you the best possible experience, not based on what the destination has to offer, but based on what you would like to see in that destination. I'm pretty sure that when I travel, my goals and what I want to see is completely different from my wife, for example, right? So, of course, if you're showing me a destination and I'm traveling alone, I will see some stuff. If I'm traveling with my family, I will see something else. All of that is possible thanks to AI. And of course, this is an under-discussed part, but generative AI can do wonders to create immersive spaces. So we're talking a lot about VR, or spatial computing, especially with Vision Pro recently, or metaverse, extended reality, call it as you like. The problem is that it's very expensive to build for the metaverse. Now, what we do have, exactly as development, we have more and more artificial intelligence designing spaces, designing destination, designing hotels directly in the metaverse so that the price goes down dramatically. So I tried to keep this under an hour. I think I was kind of able to do that. So I'm just going to leave you with a few takeaways and a little bonus. So the takeaways are, it's never human intelligence versus artificial intelligence. It's always human intelligence plus artificial intelligence. It's not a battle. It's just semantics. Okay. Is it solving a problem? This is why it's HI plus AI. Very important. At least in the short term, artificial intelligence is not going to replace you. But if somebody is doing your job and it's already using artificial intelligence, he or she will replace you. So you don't have to be scared of artificial intelligence today. You need to be scared of people doing your work with level of artificial intelligence. We used to automate all these jobs that Japanese people, they call it kitanai, kiken, kitsu, meaning dirty, dangerous, and demanding, right? So it's fine, sure, if we need to bring somebody in a mine that is super dangerous, we don't bring humans if we can. We just bring robots down there. Now, the thing that is happening with AI, though, is that AI is taking also pretty cool jobs, like creative jobs, artist job, musician jobs. So you need to be a little careful with that. Technology is never linear, technology is exponential, meaning that at some point we will not be able to understand the possible future applications and implication of artificial intelligence. My suggestion is just try to stay up to date as much as you can, try to understand the basic, and be ready to unlearn what you think you know. That's the most important thing when it comes to artificial intelligence. And then if you're a creative people, if you're a travel influencer, if you're a content creator, you're not safe, because artificial intelligence is also taking creative jobs. So it's not only creativity, it's creativity, and you need to get that into your day-to-day operation. And we talk about that, for a lot of destinations, a lot of countries, this is already a problem that they do not have enough people. So automation, that's probably the logical response. To a certain extent, it's also happening in travel. Think about the fact that 70% of people that was fired after COVID have no intention to go back to hospitality. It's a scary fact, but if you work in space, you know that it's very hard to find a chef. It's very hard to find a front office manager. In the US, the average salary went up by 15%. Still, people don't want to go back to a job that is very demanding, and that is hospitality. So that is why we need some level of automation, because we don't have enough people to do that. And of course, remember that artificial intelligence does not necessarily share our morale. So we need to build and develop artificial intelligence based on humans' value. And that is not always the case. And that is why you got a surge of jobs that were completely forgotten for a long time, like artists or philosophers, because what they're doing is they're training artificial intelligence to explain what a human is and why we are valuable. And if tomorrow artificial intelligence takes over the world, they don't have to destroy us. So at the end of the day, artificial intelligence can create an utopia. We all work less. We all need less money because stuff is less costly, or it can be a nightmare. It's really up to us and the way we interact with artificial intelligence. And I'm going to leave you with a bonus. That is some ChatGPT extension that I use every day. So we just give some pragmatic example as well to make your life easier. The first one is Web ChatGPT. It's a little extension that you can add to Google. So when you Google stuff, on top of the Google result, you got the ChatGPT results as well. And very often ChatGPT results are better. So you don't have to do the two searches. ChatGPT Writer and Compose AI. This is amazing. You connect it to your email client, and it does pre-write email response for you. You can connect it to your calendar, for example. So let's say Simon write to me and say, look, I'm going to be 20 minutes late. Do you have a slot for me? It connects to my calendar. It checks if I do have availability or not, and reply directly to you. Okay. It just automatizes so much of the work. YouTube summary, another great thing, especially for long podcasts like the one we did now. Let's say you don't want to listen to me ranting about AI for an hour. You can use this plugin, and it will just give you the bullet points with the most interesting thing I said, if I said any. And then you got summarized that basically does the same thing, but for other documents. And my favorite of all, it's Perplexity, and that is just Google and ChatGPT on steroids. So it integrates search with generative content. I talk about that pretty much all the time. My main areas are decentralization, Web3, and generative AI, and the impact in the travel space. If you want to get in touch with me, these are all of my contacts. I do have a couple of podcasts out there. One is on the metaverse as well. So if you want to see like a podcast as an avatar, you can connect. It's once a month. I have a new book coming out in June. And I think that's pretty much it. And I've done it in 1 hour.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. I mean, that's certainly, I'm sure I was fascinated by that. So don't worry about being spoken at for an hour. And I just wanted to let you run for as long as possible, because that was an amazing learning experience. And as a procurement leader who is looking at both how do we use AI and use it effectively to both drive efficiencies and value and personalization for our customers and clients, but also thinking about the ethical side of it. And we talk about sustainable procurement. So how do we embrace the positives whilst just being mindful of the risks? And for me, the thing that I was thinking about as you were talking is that fine line between hyper personalization and using it to make my life easier and to give me what I want, versus that slight extension beyond it to influencing me into what I want when that wasn't what I actually wanted. And there's a very subtle line between driving huge added value and what I would call unethical use of that intelligence. And I'm sure that everyone watching can think about that more. We're not going to have time for Q&A today, because we just wanted to take the learning opportunity. But on behalf of SPP and the Travel and Hospitality Chapter, I just wanted to thank you so much for your time today. It's been hugely insightful, both for those of us on the call, and I'm sure for the many people that will be watching this back online. For everybody watching this, just to remind you that We have a LinkedIn group. There's the main SPP LinkedIn group, but there is also a special LinkedIn group for our travel and hospitality chapter. That is the place to get in touch with myself, with Francesco, with Yvonne, and anyone else within the chapter. We're always looking for new speakers, new topics to get the engagement going. As we say, there's a whole breadth of subjects related to sustainability and sustainable procurement. We are all learning and going as we go, sharing that knowledge, collaborating is going to be the way forward. And the Sustainable Procurement Pledge is a community that is welcoming to all and has got a bold ambition to really help the procurement profession to drive sustainability across the world as we go for our ever ambitious goal of 1 million members by 2030. So with that, just again, thank you so much, Simone. Really appreciate your time. And we look forward to seeing and speaking with you all soon. Many thanks.
Ciao, ciao.